Hi everyone, in this video we're going to go through a bit of website design. So you're actually going to be making your own little website design this time around, but let's have a little reminder ourselves of what we did last time, about what a good website should have. All of these features are things we talked about in the previous lesson, so I would strongly advise you go back into the previous video, have a little look as we talked through all of these features in detail, and if you downloaded the Knowledge Organizer last week, then you'll have notes on all of these as well, so please do use them for today. Now, what you're going to be designing is a little design for a music festival website. So with that in mind, you can choose whatever music festival you want. That's entirely up to you. And if you want to have specific bands on there yourself and make that all up, that's absolutely fine. But what I'm looking for when you're making this website are a few key things. Obviously, what we've just mentioned, all the good features of a website. But more than that, we've got a few ideas here. So your target audience is really important. Who are you aiming this website at, or this festival at? If you're aiming it to be a heavy metal concert and you make it all pink and rainbowy, you're going to confuse some people. So just make sure that target audience is thought of sensibly. The genre of the music ties into that quite nicely as well, because the genre of the music can quite heavily dictate the style you go down. If you're going down a rap route, you might end up with a lot more graffiti than you would do if you went orchestral and classical, obviously. I mean, I'd be interested to see that, but it doesn't really make much sense, does it? Simplicity of the website's really important too. Don't fill it up with random nonsense if it doesn't need to be there. As you remember from last time, we said that the content needs to be appropriate. We want to make sure that content is something that users are going to want to find. So if you think, and you can actually look yourself at some music festival websites, if any of them are open at the moment. I'm sure they will. But you look at examples of previous ones, you may see things like the bands that are actually on there, the times, what to do, how to get there, things like that. An appropriate use of images is sensible. You want to use images, you're going to absolutely have to use images. It's not going to look very exciting without it, but it's just making sure that you use the right images and you use them sensibly. But before we can do that, really, you should be thinking about making a logo. Logos are what people will think of when they think of your festival. So what I'd like you to do is obviously think, when you do your task, is think of a name for your festival and create a simple logo for it. Now, really, let's try and keep this as lean as possible, because we want to make sure that this logo is used across all points of your website and it kind of dictates your house style. So whatever you use in your house style, it's going to really have to show up in your logo somewhere. Now, logo design is, there's a lot to logo design, but you don't have to go absolutely wild and crazy. I've shown a little example up here. If you are struggling for ideas, maybe you could say, oh, this is the KC1 festival, King Charles I festival, whatever. So you could say, oh, I've got the K and the C and the 1. It's always a good idea to try and use the letters and sort of scramble them and try to arrange them in different ways. That always makes a strong sort of logo. You can imagine there's loads of different logos out there which use the letters of it. So let's say I had a rock festival. I can almost, you could always say King Charles Rock or something like that. You could also have KCR or something. You could rearrange those letters, so, or maybe you can have KC rocks underneath. Using the text is really important. I wouldn't use massively detailed images. Massively detailed images don't work really well for logos. If you want to use images, that's absolutely fine, but try and keep them simple. Try and keep them quite shape-based, because you can see on this screen right now, the logo is quite small, and generally logos do end up being very small. If you end up with a really high-quality image of a guitar as your logo, like with all the strings and everything really high quality, you're going to lose that when it becomes smaller. If you do want a guitar, you could very well do that. Let's say we put this in a sort of angular form, and then we put a guitar possibly going off the side here, with all different strings or whatever. That's fine. You can use the guitars here, or even a drum set or something like that. That's fine too. So you could have loads of different, try and keep it as simple as you can. You could very well just forget the instruments completely and just leave it as with the sort of angular shapes. You can make this font all pointed, loads of different options. After that, you're going to have a go at making a homepage. And I'm just going to remind us of the homepages that were made, you looked at last week. These are all obviously older versions, but you can get an idea of the sort of things homepages have. Apple's is literally their navigation and a huge image. And that image is because they're very image-based, it's a very high-quality image, and that's what they've chosen to go with. You can easily do that if you wanted, it is a little bit simple. This one down here, I've got quite a few images. Again, you can see that navigational structure is across the top of all three of them. So it is relevant to probably keep that at the top. But you see, it's very image based. This one's got one big image and then three little ones. The BBC has got a lot of features, but they've gone for one larger image and two smaller ones here before going into further content underneath. But they've got a lot of content to cover. You know, you may decide if you've got your band website, you may decide to have your box here, you might have your navigation across the top. You may have one large image and then you may have a number of smaller images underneath. That's a fairly common way of doing it. You may do something where you have a background image, so the whole image is the background, and then you have a box over the top of it, for example, with some text on. And then the background image is all in there in the back, and you've still got your navigation there. That's another common way of doing it. But consider the features that you see on these pages here when you consider what you're going to put on your own homepage as well. Try and keep it image heavy, try and keep it engaging so your people who are looking at the website want to look further. And what should they expect to see on the first page of a music website? Again, look at other festivals. If you look at Reading, look at Glastonbury and things like that, see what they have on their websites. And after you've done that, you're going to make a master page. Now, you may remember from last year when you did about master slides. You can see about master slides, just to go through now. This is a very useful example because you can see we always have our learning objective at the bottom. We always have the title here. We always have this line to separate the content. So these are all things that are consistent across every page. And a homepage on a website kind of has these features, but mainly a website has consistent features across each page. So a master page, as I say, is all the features you would expect to see on every single page. So when you navigate around the website, then you know where that content is. It helps with navigation. So, for example, if I was to have a contact page for the festival, the navigation's always going to be there. The content in the middle may be different, but you might always have a home button at the top, for example. That's a terrible drawing of a house, but it's a home button. So, you might always have that home button there. You might always have a title at the top. The title obviously is going to change. So it might be contact page for this one. It might be an about us page for another one, but the title is always there. So if you're designing this on your master page, I would expect you just to put a little arrow there and say that the title will go in there. Or you could just put title in the actual box itself. And then you might say that you have one section for the first bit of information, one section for the second bit of information. You might have an image there and text here. You might have text there, image here. There's loads of different ways you can go about it. But really, the consistent features that stay the same across all of them are your navigation, probably a background, and probably your title at the top as well. So when you're making this master page, do consider that. Again, look at the old websites from last week, maybe the BBC, and the BBC is probably quite a good one because they've got a lot of different pages, but they have probably very consistent house style throughout. So think of the features that you should expect to see on every single page. Again, I'm going to be really curious to see what you come out with this time because you've got a lot more creative freedom when you make this. So please do let me know how you get on. And if you do have any concerns or questions, please do let me know.